Hey, I'm Hannah Weiss, the Director of Education at the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and this is your Moment of STEM. And this week, we're going to talk about Sophie Germain. Now, Sophie Germain was a mathematician, and since it's Women's History Month, I really like to talk about women in STEM. But that final M, the math part of STEM, in my experience gets left off a lot. And math is fantastic, which is definitely something that Sophie Germain thought. She actually had to overcome a ton in her life to be able to study math. Sophie Germain was a teenager during the Great Terror, which, if you remember your history, the Great Terror was that time period in France where they were maybe a little too fond of the guillotine. So while she was a teenager, it wasn't super safe for her to be outdoors, meaning she spent a lot of time indoors. And the way that she kind of made the days go by a little quicker was by studying mathematics. However, this wasn't a time during which math was thought an appropriate thing for young women to do, so her parents tried to stop her. However, that just meant that Sophie Germain snuck out at night after everyone had fallen asleep to keep studying. And when her parents found this out, they actually took away her lamps and made sure that there was no fire in her room at night so that she wouldn't want to leave her bed. And they thought this was working until they found her one morning with stolen candles burnt out, asleep over a math textbook, bundled up in a quilt, and with her pen frozen in her ink beside her. They knew that they couldn't stop her, so they decided to let her keep studying. Of course, this wasn't the last time she had to overcome a bunch to study math. When she was about 18, there was a school that opened up by her that was all about training scientists and mathematicians. But, as a woman, Sophie Germain wasn't allowed to attend. So what she did was assume the identity of a male student who stopped going to classes, and used his name to get lecture notes and submit assignments. She probably would not have even had to come clean if not for the fact that the professor was astounded by the brilliance of this student and wanted a meeting. Because of Sophie Germain's work, she was allowed to kind of continue studying even after she was found out. This work continued on to adulthood. She earned, and achieved actually, this fantastic award from the French Academy of Sciences, but wasn't allowed to attend the ceremony and even had to pay for her own work to be published. Despite that, Sophie Germain worked with some of the biggest names in science and math at the time, people like Gauss and Lagrange and Fourier. There are equations and formulas named after these scientists. And Sophie Germain actually has a set of numbers named after her, a set of primes called Sophie Germain primes that are really, really important because of their relationship to something called safe primes, which are necessary for cryptography, the science and math that keeps all of our information safe. If you'd like to know more about Sophie Germain, her life, and her research, you can check out any of the links below. Otherwise, I'm Hannah Weiss from the Science Museum of Western Virginia. And, okay, so Germain primes are really, really cool. They're prime numbers that are of the form p, where p is a prime, and 2p plus 1, meaning that the number itself and the number multiplied by 2 plus 1 both have to be a prime. The smallest one of these is 2. Because 2 is a prime number, it's divisible by 1 in itself, and 2 times 2 plus 1 is 5, which is also a prime.